Is this in any way a catharsis for you? Tell me what it does to be able to put this down and to talk about this. I mean, you are one who is in touch with your feelings.
Well, it would seem so. My metabolism completely changed while I was writing that book. I thought it had changed for good, and I was just getting older. It was just another ledge, you know.
Meaning what? That you slowed up in terms of the way you...
I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. And it wasn't unpleasant. In fact, some of the most delicious lie-ins I'd ever had in my life. But I'd get up at noon thinking I could do with 2 or 3 more hours of this. And I thought, boy, you really are slowing down. And I wasn't reluctant to get to work. But it was just emotional exhaustion.
And as soon as you finished this, I was back to normal.
Back to normal, as if the unconscious mind had suddenly been plugged in again. Because I didn't need my unconscious mind to write that. I could do it all with the conscious mind. It's not like a novel. And I thought I couldn't possibly write a novel in this emotional state. You've got to have a bit of ice in you when you're writing a novel.
Okay. But did writing this force you to come to grips with emotion, with feelings that you knew were there, but you couldn't define them? Does the act of writing bring forth the act of defining?
It was an orgy of lugubriousness for me. I mean, totally lachrymose.
Crying all the time.
Sort of limp with emotion, because writing is also remembering, and it's like a muscle. The more you remember, the better your memory gets. And when you're writing, you have to put it down exactly as you felt it and as you imagined it, and that is cathartic. That works out the grief.
Discovering that you have a child that you didn't know about.
I did know about her.
Oh, but you knew about it, but not in the beginning.
I knew of her existence.
From the time she was pregnant?
No, when she was 2.
Okay.
The mother showed me a photograph.
Right. But in terms of coming to the daughter?
I didn't get to know her until she was 19 and already at Oxford. And as Salman Rushdie said, he said, oh, that's quite an interesting way of doing it. He said, you skip the diaper stage and go straight to mortarboards and scholars' gowns. And she was a completely grown-up girl.
Is this meaningful to you, or is this just
it's
an event that took place?
No, it's tremendously meaningful for me. And
in what way?
Well, something very strange happened when Delilah, her name, when this became public, and there was a lot in the press. And then on the Sunday there was a more thoughtful piece by a novelist, Maureen Freely, who said that actually if you look back at my novels, you can see that from this point on...
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've been writing about...
Lost children, vulnerable children, misattributed children.
And you could see it when you thought about it.
Oh, I jumped out of my boots, I felt busted. I thought, she's really seen the mainspring, I wasn't aware of it myself. Although it was sharply consoling at the same time, because it meant I had been with Delilah in spirit, in the most intense way possible, while writing. But that was a shock, and that was one of the reasons why it felt like a good time to write this book, because my fictional wellsprings had been exposed.
You pretty much, why call it experience?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, experience is what we all have in common, but it's also the opposite of innocence, as Blake knew. And the book is about the loss of innocence and the necessary and tragic and to be regretted transfer from innocence to experience.
There's in the beginning letters from school. You say, by the way, Jane, I did Lawrence's The Rainbow for A level, so I feel qualified to say why he's no good. I shall read the others before the interview, and I fancy War and Peace, and at that Archibald's suggestion, Daniel Deronda, more lightning opinions. Ezra Pound, trendy little ponce, odd and good, but I feel he must be an awful old crap.
I know. And
Hopkins, great fun to read, but doesn't stand up to analysis.
yeah, isn't that great?
Donne, very splendid. Marvell, splendid. Keats, all right when he's not saying I'm a poet. Got that?
I know these are.
What can we say about the young
we ought to
Mr.
point out
Amos saying this?
I was 17. At
Yes,
the time.
exactly. That's my point.
That's not my current attitude.
But the hubris or the something to sort of suggest I'm passing judgment here.
Oh, desperately insecure arrogance.
You must be feel good about this is something you had to write, even to get on with your life. Probably.
Yeah, I did.
And it stood in the probably stood in the way of whatever the other work that you want to go to.
It did feel very necessary, but the main desire behind it was to commemorate my father and to. I was uniquely well placed to see what writing was, how the life bled into the work, and how the work affected the life. I saw it all my childhood. I saw it when my father was married to Elizabeth Jane Howard. Right. The son of, I was the child in the house with these two warring writers. And I felt, it felt pro bono to tell everyone what that was like.
Okay. Did you write it because you felt uniquely able to define, I mean, there are other things about your life beyond the relationship with your father, but you felt uniquely able to define your father because of what you knew and seen and shared? Or did you write it out of your own need to explore this relationship?
I guess both. It hasn't happened before. The two writers are stacked, one on top of each other like that. And I thought that I could tell everyone, explain the geography of a writer's mind and how it actually works and how experience does go into fiction and how it is transformed along the way. I was just awfully well placed. I had a lucky life.
With your normal powers of candor, compare yourself with your father.
As literary beings, I'd say we were pretty equivalent, actually. And if our dates of birth had been transposed, I might have written his corpus and he might have written mine. The big difference between us is that he was a poet.
And you were a prose.
He was a poet and a novelist,
right.
Which meant he could sort of let off steam from the novels in his poems.
But you've been a poet editor in your life before.
I have. And I did write a couple of poems in my youth. And he used to sneer at me for not being a poet. That was the one.
As if what?
Well, he'd say, I don't, where's your first book of poems, he would say. I don't seem to see your first book of poems. But my poetic impulses, such as they are, go into my prose, and that's the difference between us.
Experience, a memoir, Martin Amos, his father, Kingsley Amos. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Charlie.